let's bring in Professor Aristyo Darmawan at the Faculty of Law, Universitas Indonesia, and a current PhD scholar at the School of Regulation and Global Governance at the Australian National University. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, let's start the Global Affairs Insider. How should the Philippines respond to this political relationship is demonstrated by China towards the Philippines? Or how should the Philippines react to this kind of actions that they completely acknowledge on a different perspective? So what should be the position of the Philippines when it comes to its political and diplomatic relations with China, given the complex problem that's happening right now in the West Philippine Sea?
Right. So I have to declare that I'm not a Philippines foreign policy expert, so I might not have the sensitivities which colleagues in the Philippines might have and considered in responding to such intrusions by China. But I think what the Philippines did, of course, is I think Philippines have all the rights to have to respond or to the law to the law enforcement in its maritime area by all means. But politically, I think what the Philippines has done in having alliance or having a cooperations, engaging in multilateral cooperations with countries such as the US, I think it has been very much understood in responding to China's bullies and assertions. Just to let you know that we are not only small countries, but we have friends and allies which we might be working with in order to enforce international law and to prevent any conflicts in the disputed area. So I think a couple of things, how Philippines build alliances and cooperations with other countries is important, but also the law enforcement and in responding to the day-to-day activities or insertions by China, I think it's also important for the Philippines.
Okay, so as a political analyst and international security maritime analyst, I wanted to ask, at this point of time, how do you project the future roadmap of this current status that's happening right now? I mean, what can we look forward in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years, given the current situation? And what are the things that the Philippines, for instance, or China can prepare if there's need some sort of preparation? And how should things be aligned in a way that it will be mutually acceptable to both sides? What are your thoughts on that?
Right. I think in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years, or the status quo, the most important part of the South China Sea, it's to how to maintain peace and securities and avoid escalations and conflicts, right? Because when we talk about resolving the dispute, it is something that is very much difficult, right? I remember a senior mentor of mine told me that the South China Sea conflict is a thing that is very difficult to imagine to be solved in our generation's times, right? So it's very much difficult, and therefore maintaining peace and security is very much important, or the thing that we can expect. And the closest or the thing that the ASEAN, Philippines, ASEAN claimants, Philippines and China is working together is the negotiation of the Code of Conduct, right? So I think the negotiation has been going on for a number of years now, and I think that is the shortest that we can aim to achieve in order to avoiding conflicts in South China Sea. But I think what more important, of course, here is that how the Philippines, China's, and all claimants seek to build a channel of communications to avoid those kind of escalations in the region. So I think the most important thing to avoid any conflict escalations, I think it's through the channel of communication, and also for all countries, mainly China, to avoid and restrain for having an assertive measures and against any other countries in the disputed area.
Okay. So what are your final thoughts in this situation? What can we look forward? And as a political analyst, how do you think the parties involved should make some adjustment or modalities so that this issue will be managed in a very diplomatic way and in a very peaceful way?
Yeah, I think the most important thing, of course, to avoid any escalations, as I said earlier, is the abilities to make a channel of communications, right? Because the most difficult part or the worst might come out if parties doesn't really have a diplomatic channels and communications. So maintains diplomatic channels, maintain the venue for diplomacy. I think it is the most important part of to keep peaceful and security. Also, I think in the recent year, what also I thought is going to be important is the extension of domestic politics of Southeast Asian countries. I know some countries in Southeast Asia might having any elections, and their approach to the disputed might be different, right? I mean, like the Philippines itself, from Duterte to the current president, from Ninoy, a previous president, was a very different approach towards the dispute, right? So I think considering the changing of administrations, domestic politics is also very important to consider on how they might respond to the South China Sea. But of course, the most important thing I should say is that the negotiation of the code of conduct should be going on, because it will create an avenue for diplomatic measures in order to avoid any escalation and tensions, and also diplomatic channels and communications when such an incident happen. I think it's also very important, right? Because without any channel of communications, any worse possibilities might also happen.
Professor Aristyo Darmawan at the Faculty of Law, Universitas Indonesia, and a current PhD scholar at the School of Regulation and Global Governance at the Australian National University. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
This is Dr. Reyron del Rosario. That's the Global Affairs Insider. Follow us to our next episode only here in IPDCI News Channel.